Okay, now that you know what the form y equals mx plus b is, we're going to use that knowledge in order to find the equation of this line and put it into y equals mx plus b form. So in order to do this, there's two steps. We first have to find the slope of a line, and then we have to find the y-intercept. Now, this is quite straightforward. So we're going to first find the slope of the line. So step 1, find the slope of the line. Okay, so to find the slope of our line, what we're talking about when we talk about slope is the steepness of this line. So a line that's like this is pretty steep. The closer that line is to being straight up and down or vertical is how steep it is. So if we have a horizontal line, that line has a 0 slope. It has it's not steep at all. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about slope. A positive slope will move from left to right. A negative slope will move from left to right in the downward direction. So, sorry, let me restate that. A positive slope will move up from left to right. A negative slope will move down from left to right. So notice that we're moving down from left to right. That means we have a negative slope here. So that's something just to keep in mind as we figure out what this is. So the easiest way to find slope is to look at your graph and notice, find 2 points where you can see that it intersects the grid lines on your graph. So what I see is it intersects right here and it intersects right there. So the points of these 2 points, I'll notice is 0 in the x direction, 1, 2, 3. So this is 0, 3. And this is 1, 0. So we have the point 1, 0. So these are our 2 points that we have. Now, what I'm concerned about is how far I need to go first in the y direction, and then how far I need to go in the x direction. So if I'm moving from left to right, I have to go right down here. So 1, 2, 3, and I'm moving negative. So I'm going negative 3 units down, and then I'm moving 1 unit in the positive x direction. So that's going to be, remember, our slope is the change in y over the change in x. So the change in y in this case is negative 3 units, right? So we start at 3, we go down to 2, down to 1, down to 0. That's where our next point is. So we have negative 3 divided by, that's what we mean over, change in y over the change in x. So in this case, our change in x is just 1 unit, right? We just go 1 unit over. So we have a slope of negative 3 divided by 1, which is just a slope of negative 3. Now, let's say you don't have this line, but you have 2 points. So in this case, we have our point 0, 3 and 1, 0. So let's talk about finding slope in that case. So that means that we have 2 points. If we're talking about the change in these 2 points, we can find that using the formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So notice that we're just talking about the difference between this y value and this. So if I put this in, I have a 3 minus a 0, because our y value for our second point is 0, and I have a 0 because that's what my x2 value is, minus a1. And this simplifies to 3 over negative 1, or negative 3, just like we had above there. So after we found our slope, the second step is we need to find the y-intercept. Now, this can be done a couple different ways. The easiest way is if you have a line already drawn. Well, if you look at the video on finding x and y intercepts, you'll find that the y-intercept is simply the point at which our line crosses the y-axis. So right here, we can see it clearly. It is 0, 3. So our y-intercept is 3. Now, let's say either your line doesn't cross right on a grid line, so you can't tell what number it is, or you don't have a line. So we can use what we already know of y equals mx plus b in order to find this. So let's talk about that. So if we know that our slope up here, we know is negative 3. So what we need to do is remember our form. We have our form y equals mx plus b. Well, remember m is the slope. So we now know that this is negative 3. So we can say y equals negative 3 x plus b. Now we still don't know what b is. However, if we take a point and substitute it in for x and y, then we should be able to solve for b. So let's do this. Let's take the point 0. Actually, let's take this point. Let's take the point 1, 0. So if I plug that in, that means my x value is 1 and my y value is 0. So that means I have 0 equals negative 3 times 1 plus b. Now that simplifies to 0 equals negative 3 plus b. And now I just need to get b by itself. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. That cancels out, and I'm left with b equals 3, which is my slope. So just like, if we look up here, just like we did up here, it's the same value. So that means our final equation is y equals our slope, negative 3, x plus our y-intercept, which is 3.